This is how the book is laid out. And all I'm going to do is just read the chapters. Where there's a doctor with an opinion.
What page, Paul?
The table of contents. And all I'm going to do is just read the chapters. Where there's a doctor with an opinion. He's got an opinion about Bill, so Bill tells the story. Bill says there's a solution, but first let's talk more about alcoholism. It's a spiritually-based program as described in We Agnostics. That's how it works. How it works means you get into action. Into action means you work with others. Most of us have wives, families, jobs, and this is a vision for you. Where the steps are in this book is from the front of the book to page 44. Is the first half of the first step. Powerless over alcohol. From the front of the book to page 44. The first half of the first step, powerless over alcohol. The second half of the first step and the second step are in We Agnostics, chapter 4. Steps 3 and 4 are in chapter 5. Steps 5 through 11 are in chapter 6. And chapter 7 is obviously the 12th step, working with others. And the next 3 chapters are we carry these principles into all our affairs. We carry these principles into relationships, to our wives and to the spouse, right, to our families and to our jobs. So that's what it means by carrying these principles into all our affairs. To the wives, to the families, to the jobs. The last chapter is called A Vision for You. So why is it's called A Vision for You? What does that mean? What does it mean, a vision for you? It's like when we share at meetings, it's that our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. So if you were to share in a general way what you used to be like, what you're like now, or excuse me, what happened and what you're like now, then the newcomer in the room has a chance of seeing what's possible for them. You guys remember being in meetings and hearing somebody tell your story or something close to your story? Right? Well, see, that's the purpose of a meeting, and that's why they call it a vision for you, is that if you share in a certain way in meetings, which doesn't mean you talk about your day, you don't talk about drunk-alongs, you don't talk about any of that other stuff, right? You talk about how you drank, how you felt, and how you feel, and then what happened to you to get you to this point today. With the hopes that a newcomer is going to hear you and say, I'm like that now. And this is what this guy did, and so this could happen to me too. You guys understand that? That's the purpose of a meeting. It's not for you to come and just dump your crap and and just say talk about your day and if I don't talk about it I'm going to get drunk. I mean that's just ludicrous. I mean it really is ludicrous. It's the sole purpose of a meeting. The sole purpose of a meeting is to provide a time and place for new people to bring their problems. Right? That's it, right? And the reason that I go to meetings is because when new people are bringing their problems there and they get to talk about it, I get to be catapulted back to 1994. I get to relive through your experience the pain and the suffering that I went through your experience. Does that make sense? And so that's how I relive these things. So the purpose of a meeting is to attract newcomers. And the purpose of a meeting is to be a cheerleader for the 12 steps. Okay, so a vision for you is can you explain alcoholism through your story to somebody new in the room? And in doing so, they get to see a glimpse of their future. Does that make sense? That's a vision for you. That's why the last chapter is called A Vision for You. And a vision for you is not, our book is meant to be suggestive, only we realize we know only a little. That's not what they're talking about. Right? A vision for you is really on page 153 of the book, where it says, it may seem incredible these men are to become happy, respected, and useful once more. How can they rise out of such misery, bad repute, and hopelessness? The practical answer is, since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you, should you wish them above all else, and be willing to make use of our experience. We're sure they'll come. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that. So you guys remember that, right? That's a vision for you. It's not our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. And so that's the table of contents. Anybody got any questions on that one? All right, so the next part of this is the preface, please. And it's, second paragraph says, because this book has become the basic text for our society. So what does it mean to be a basic text? What is it, right, okay? If you were studying math, you'd have a basic text. Right, it's a book of information. Right, this is a book of information. Right, a basic text for society. And it helps its large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recovery. So this book is going to help you to recovery. Those people who say you're always in recovery, you're never going to recover, run from them. Run from them. I'm sorry, but they're always going to be in misery. They're always going to stay as the victims. They're always going to stay in misery. Right? So, right, I'm a recovered alcoholic. Nicole's recovered. Right? Owen's recovered. Athena's recovered. Right? There's several people. Ruth is recovered. Right? There's several people in this room. Charles is recovered. There's several people in this room who have recovered. Are recovered alcoholic, but that doesn't mean that we are cured of alcoholism. They're two separate things. Two separate things. So it's the purpose of this book is because this book has become the basic text for our society. It helps large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recovery. There exists a strong sentiment getting radical changes being made in it. Therefore, the first portion of this volume describing the AA recovery program. So this book is going to describe the AA recovery program. And if it's not in this book, it's not the AA recovery program. And the thing that I'd like to I kind of mention that if you like the idea of praying for somebody, right, or a God box, or going down the park, standing on your head naked is spiritual, by all means do that. Right? Do whatever you need to do in order to make yourself be spiritually fit. It's your choice, and by do it. But don't tell your sponsees to do it. So many things that a sponsor has done, they have rubber stamped as the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Like stay out of relationships in the first year. Is that part of this book? Is that part of recovery? No. It's somebody's opinion. Although it may be a good opinion for them, it's not a blanket statement for everybody. Yes, sir.
Going back to you saying like recovered, what is the hallmark of being recovered?
We're going to go, okay, next, it's a great question, next page. Forward to the first edition. Great question. So forward to the first edition, and part of this is intended to kind of help you to learn how to read the book. Right? Because sometimes I read something and I want it to take on what I need it to say. You guys understand that part? What I need it to say, what I want it to say. But it says something entirely different than what I want it to say. So we have to interpret it for what it says and not what I think it says. So it says, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we've recovered is the main purpose of this book. So, from what we just read, what is the main purpose of this book? From what? From a hopeless state of mind and body. We don't recover from alcoholism. Nowhere here does it say we've recovered from alcoholism. Recover from a seemingly hopeless state. And what is that seemingly hopeless state? It's the obsession. It's the obsession. Anybody wake up this morning with the obsession to drink? Mm-hmm. Well, if you had the obsession, you'd be gone. What's the difference between an obsession and a desire? Right, an obsession is there's no negotiating with an obsession.
You have no choice.
Right, and so there's you can negotiate with a desire. Right, you can play the tape all the way through with the desire. Right, if you have a desire to drink, you can possibly call somebody. Right, but the obsession, it's gone. You're right. There is no negotiating when the obsession hits. I witnessed a young lady who was walking to the liquor store yesterday, and as I'm driving by, she happens to see my van. Right, and so I pull into here, and next thing I know, she's turning around and walking back. Right, she was on her way to the liquor store. That was a desire. And then a little while later, the obsession hit her, and there she goes.
Wow.
So there's a big difference between a desire and an obsession. And so I'm recovered from a seemingly hopeless state, and the obsession is, can anybody give me some hope that I can wake up tomorrow morning and not obsess about alcohol? Can anybody give me, right, and that's really all we're looking for when we get here. It's just a little bit of hope. So, I guess you want to know the difference between, go to the bottom of page 84, please. This is what happens to everybody who does the work, without exception. Right? And we cease fighting everything and everybody, even alcohol, for by this time sanity will have returned. Hey, you see that part? Right? We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We've not even sworn off. The problem has been removed. It doesn't exist. Right? You guys there?
No, where's that part?
Okay, bottom of page 84, it says we cease fighting anything or anybody, even alcohol, for by this time sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we find this has happened automatically. We'll see that our new attitude towards liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That's the miracle of it. We're not even fighting it, neither avoiding temptation. We feel as though the problem has been removed. That's recovered. That's recovered.
Position of neutrality.
A position of neutrality. Okay, is it right? I don't know if anybody can understand this. Most people can. Is that the illness and alcoholism are two separate things. Let me see if I can understand. Right? How old were you when you looked around the world and felt like you were different?
No.
Right? How old were you? Right? And so does that have anything to do with drinking?
No.
Has nothing to do with drinking. But when we drink, did it make you feel like you were part of something? Did it give you a sense of ease and comfort? Did it make you feel that you were okay? So we're consuming a spirit to kind of fix this internal discomfort that we have long before we started drinking. Does that make sense? So alcohol, in a certain sense, is our solution to this illness. And we're always going to have this illness. This illness is never going to go away. This internal discomfort about who I am, I'm not good enough, I don't measure up. And anybody ever wake up in the morning with this idea that there's something bad's going to happen? Impending doom? You're not out of bed yet? Anybody? Has that happened to anybody else besides me?
So we need to look at the illness, not the alcohol.
Absolutely,
Right, yeah.
absolutely. We have to
Deal with
treat
that,
the
work on
illness.
that.
If you treat the illness,
Right.
see, you're treating the illness with alcohol right now, or drugs, or whatever it is you're using. That's what you're treating the illness with. And you consume so much alcohol or drugs, or whatever the case may be, that your body stops processing that particular substance, and instead of it's shutting you down, it's asking for more. It's called a craving because we consume so much that our metabolism can't handle it anymore. Does that make sense? But yet that's the only spirit we know. When you drink, does your ideas change? Yeah, does your emotions change? And does your outlook on life change? You're having a spiritual experience every time you drink or use. And so this idea that something is going to trigger you is ludicrous. This idea that people, places, and things have something to do with your illness is insane. You're being led down the wrong path, the wrong road. Your illness is not external. The illness is not external. It has nothing to do with people, places, or things. It has nothing to do with triggers. Yes, ma'am?
I thought triggers were like really important to watch out for. I thought triggers were
Oh,
Oh, hi.
that's Riley.
All right, you have a book, Riley?
I don't have a book.
Yeah, come up here, grab a book. Bottom of page 100. Now, this is a question here that from a young lady that, then Nicole's back there. This is coming from a question from a person who's been in so many treatment programs. It's got to be. I mean, I've never met this woman before, but just those questions are somebody who's been in so many counseling sessions and so many treatment centers. Okay, a trigger about on page 100. It says, assuming we're spiritually fit, we can do all sorts of things alcoholics aren't supposed to do. Right, or spiritually fit. Right? So are you spiritually fit when you go, are you going to take that first couple drinks?
No.
I'm spiritually fit when I take those first couple drinks. But then the body takes over and I get overserved. The craving takes over and I get overserved. If I could just have a couple drinks and just and take a breath, I'd be good. Okay? But I can't because of the allergy. People have said we must not go where liquor is served. So you've been told that? We must not have it in our homes. You've been told that one. We must shun friends who drink. How many people are told to get rid of friends other than people in AA? Well, I mean, I'll tell you this. Right? This is kind of funny. But if all of your friends, all of your acquaintances, all of your life is in Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, you're pretty friggin' miserable. You're pretty miserable.
The whole point is to go out and live life.
Because all your friends, right, all these people, all your entire acquaintance cannot be mentally ill people. Right, you guys understand that? Okay? It's gotta be, you gotta have a life outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. You absolutely have to have a life outside of here with normal people. And this is the funniest thing is that, I know I'm kind of getting off the beat here, but it's the funniest thing is part of the illness that I have is that I'm unpleasable. Right? Part of the illness you have is that nothing's ever good enough for you. Right? You guys understand that part? And so why would you come into a room of people who are unpleasable and try to please them?
Wow.
Does that make any sense?
No.
But yet we do that. Right? We come into a room of people who have the same illness we do, and for some reason we have a need to please them. when we're not pleasable ourselves. So it's very important that you live 1/3 of your life away from AA. 1/3 of your life has to be away from AA, with family members, with clubs, with work, with things that have nothing to do with Alcoholics Anonymous. That is so important so you have a balanced life. So getting back to this reading. We must shun friends who drink. We must avoid moving pictures which show drinking scenes. We must not go into bars. Our friends must hide their bottles if we go in their houses. We mustn't think or be reminded of alcohol at all. So is this what you're being taught? Right?
What?
We meet these conditions every day. An alcoholic who cannot meet them still has an alcoholic mind. There's something the matter with his spiritual status. His only chance of sobriety would be in some place like the Greenland ice cap, and even there an Eskimo might turn up with a bottle of scotch and ruin everything. Okay, so triggers are not real. Right? Did you drink when you were happy?
Yep.
Did you drink when you were sad?
Yep.
Did you drink when you were at the beach?
Yep.
How about in the mountains? How about the desert? How about at Christmas? How about New Year's? How about your birthday? How about on Tuesdays?
Yep.
So when did you not drink?
Never.
Probably when you were asleep. So being awake is a trigger.
Yep.
It's unfortunate, but what's happening in AA, and Nicole, this is what Nicole has said over and over again, is that our job at SOS here, in this facility, is to keep the 12 steps alive. Right? Because they're dying everywhere else. Every single program out there is of cognitive therapy, and I'm not bashing any of that stuff. Right? If it works, it works. Right? I'm not saying, I don't agree with it, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. Right? But our job here is to keep the 12 steps alive. And that's what we're going to do. And part of the 12 steps are, there's no triggers. It's not about people, places, and things. If you think you know what the day looks like when you're gonna drink, then you're not alcoholic. If you think you know what the day looks like, then you can just avoid that and your life will be happy and good. I mean, doesn't that make sense? But why live in fear? Most of these places are doing nothing but instilling fear in you. Stay away from people, places, and things. That's fear. Right? Stay out of relationships in your first year. That's fear. Right? Watch out for triggers. That's fear. Right? Don't make any major decisions in your first year. You guys heard all these things?
Yeah.
They're all fear. It's all fear. It's all fear-based.
Trying to scare you straight?
And you cannot program an alcoholic.
All right.
It's impossible to program an addict or an alcoholic. Somebody who has our illness cannot be programmed. You cannot feed them a computer tape and say, act this way.
And then when they go out and that doesn't work, then they figure they failed fucking.
We're going to reprogram ourselves. Yes, sir.
Would you say it's to avoid these things until you're spiritually fit?
Well, assuming we're spiritually fit, we can do all sorts of things. And so how do you know you're spiritually fit?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
Right.
Yeah.
Done your steps.
Well, it's spiritually fit is that when you're comfortable in your own skin without consuming alcohol. Right?
Yeah.
When you're you can get to a sense of peace and ease without using alcohol.
So yes,
Yes.
I have a question, Paul.
Yes, ma'am.
good question.
Thank you.
So these little sort of cliches like don't get in a relationship in the first year, don't make a big decision in the first year, and blah blah blah. Where did those come from? Because they've been around for
Forever.
a while.
Okay, let's go with this, right? Let's go over to doctor's opinion. And just what the fellowship came up with, I believe. I'm not saying that they're wrong, okay? I'm not saying that they're wrong. You know, I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm just saying they're not the program of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Can I add something?
Yes,
And maybe they should be said, if somebody's gonna say them, this is my opinion.
right. So in the doctor's opinion, Roman numeral 28, right, he talks about frothy emotional appeal.
Wait, let's do this. 28.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And Paul, also, when somebody asks a question in the room, can you repeat it? 'Cause I
Okay.
can't hear.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. And we're still working on all of this stuff too.
It's great though.
Yeah, we're still working on all this stuff. The doctor's opinion. Yeah.
Okay.
It says, we believe it's so suggested a few years ago that the action of alcohol in these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy. That the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all, and once having formed the habit and found they can't break it, once having lost their self-confidence, the problems pile up on them and seem astonishingly difficult to solve. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. And so, what is frothy emotional appeal?
Please stop drinking, I beg you.
Go to page 19. Page 19 gives page 19 gives the best definition. Or excuse me, I'm sorry, page 20.
You're the right girl.
Right. So page 20 gives the best definition of frothy emotional appeal that the book has. Right. And so as we read through these things, how many times have you said these things, or how many times have you heard these in meetings? Right. This is frothy emotional appeal. It says how many times people have said to us, "I can take it or leave it alone. Why can't you? If I can do this, you can do this." Right. You guys hear that?
Yeah.
Why don't you just leave it alone? Just stop. Just stop drinking.
Say no.
And just say no. Why can't he? Why don't you drink like a gentleman or quit? That fellow can't handle his liquor. Why don't you try beer and wine, lay off the hard stuff? This is one right here. His willpower must be weak.
Mhm.
He could stop if he wanted to.
He could stop if he wanted to. So how many times you hear this in meetings?
You'd think he'd stop for her sake.
Uh-huh. You'd think he'd stop.
You don't want it here.
Uh-huh. And so it says, now these are commonplace observations on drinkers which we hear all the time. Back of them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding. We see that these expressions refer to people whose reactions are very different from ours. So the bottom line, and whether this is, the rooms are filled with hard drinkers. Right, the rooms are filled with people who are not alcoholic. But they look a lot like an alcoholic.
But given sufficient evidence. They
Because they're a hard drinker, but if given sufficient reason, they can stop. Right? How many times have you heard a story where somebody went to jail and they woke up in the drug tank and were just completely disgusted with themselves, and they were able to stop? Right? Or get one DUI and was able to stop. Or go to jail, or the threat of losing their family and they're able to stop. I mean, they look a lot like an alcoholic. When they drink, they can't guarantee how much they're going to drink, but if given sufficient reason, they can stop. Anybody in this room been given sufficient reason to stop, and can you stop and stay stopped?
No.
See, that's the crossing point right there. Yes, sir.
I have a question. So, the moderate drinker, hard drinker, and the alcoholic, can you progress to the next level?
I did.
Because, yeah, I feel like I was at one point a moderate drinker.
Yeah, me too in elementary school.
Yeah, then became a hard drinker.
Yeah, the question is can you progress from a moderate drinker to a hard drinker to a real alcoholic? And that was a great question, and I did. I was a moderate drinker in elementary school, and sometime in high school I become a continuous hard drinker. But still in high school, I was able to graduate high school. I was able to maintain somewhat, right? But then sometime after high school, I became a real alcoholic to where I couldn't complete anything. Where my drinking got so bad to where it like consumed every part of my life, to where I couldn't go try and go get the good job. I couldn't keep the good job. I couldn't stay in relationships. It just progressively started getting worse to where I kept losing things because of drinking. Right? And I was unable to accomplish things because of drinking. But early in my drinking, I was able to do that. I was able to finish high school. Right? A real alcoholic cannot do that. A real alcoholic cannot keep a job. Right? Cannot keep in a relationship. You guys understand that? And so there is a progression of it.
But, I'm sorry. So that would mean just a question, that the illness inside of you is getting stronger.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the example of that the book gives is a man of 35 was doing a great deal of spree drinking. Or a man of 30 was doing a great deal of spree drinking.
Oh, yeah, that's
Right? He made up his mind that until he'd been successful in business, he would not touch another drop. Right? And an exceptional man, he stayed bone dry for 25 years. And then he fell victim to belief it's practically every alcoholic has. That his long period of sobriety had qualified him to drink like other men. Within 4 years, he's dead.
Can I ask you a favor? I went out of the meeting and back in, and it says that you have to invite me in. So with your do not disturb, I'm wondering, are you
Right there.
still getting those? Okay, thanks.
Right, so, so this illness is there's definite signs of the illness. But the problem is that some people who will absolutely say, just don't drink, just say no, play the tape all the way through. There's a chance they're not alcoholic. Do you guys understand that? And I'm not saying that they don't belong in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm saying that they can stay sober on a non-spiritual basis. Pardon me?
That's why they look at you like.
Right.
How did
Those
you
are the
let
people who
that
don't
happen?
understand why you continuously get drunk. Right? They think you should be able to come to AA and just stop drinking just like that. And the best sign of that is that have you ever been to a meeting when somebody drunk showed up?
No. And watch how they look at her.
Right, what do the people do in the meeting?
Bristle.
They go, hey, he's drinking. I smell beer, I smell alcohol.
Mhm.
Somebody's drinking.
Oh my God.
Imagine that, a drunken Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I mean, come on.
What better place for them to be?
Right, so the triggers, back at page 101, right, so this trigger concept, and this is what, something I want to explain here really quick.
Tell them what the question was, because they didn't hear what Riley asked people online.
Oh, what Riley asked, said was that she believes that triggers, or she's being taught that triggers are the big deal around here. And what I'm doing is kind of going through the book, showing her, or kind of explaining how the first 100 people disagree with that. So about it's page 101, and this is something that it kind of separates. A second paragraph, it says, we meet these conditions every day. An alcoholic who cannot meet them still has an alcoholic mind. There's something the matter with his spiritual status. His only chance of sobriety would be in some place like the Greenland ice cap, and even there an Eskimo might turn up with a bottle of scotch and ruin everything. Ask any woman who sent her husband to distant places on the theory he would escape the alcohol problem. And so it says, in our belief. So in our belief means that in these 100 people, the 100 people who wrote the book, in our belief, the first 100 people, not your sponsor, not the therapist, right? Not your counselor, right? But in this book, in these 100 people, in their belief, any scheme of combating alcoholism which proposes to shield the sick man from temptation is doomed to failure. Now, your counselor and your therapy and your sponsor can have different opinions, right? But here, we're talking about what the big book says, and about what these 100 people said, right?
It's like abuse.
Pardon me?
It's like abuse.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it timed out
What time now?
your session.
Well, how did that happen?
I'm not sure, but we can use, so let me call Richie, we can use his